Ramadan. Now passed the first half, and we're now entering the second half of Ramadan, and we're moving through these days of forgiveness, as the Prophet says. It's been transmitted to us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam described them as. And last week I was looking at these three stages, based on the verse of the Quran, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن, that the month of Ramadan in which the Quran was revealed. And we looked at the Ramadan, and then Quran, and then finally Furqan. These three stages that we're moving through a process towards opening our doors of perception, as I mentioned in the first week's talk. And this is the verse of Ramadan in Surah Baqarah 185, and these sets of verses we've got here. Really, this is all we have on the Ramadan, describing Ramadan in the Quran. The other verses that we have, or surahs that we have, are focused on Laylatul Qadr. And I find this verse particularly interesting. We focused on before where Allah said, "Kutiba alaykum as-siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum." It's been prescribed upon you, the month of Ramadan. Sorry, fasting. And what's interesting about that is that it's described as it's been prescribed upon you, as if there's a burden in it, there's a hardship in it, and indeed it is. That Ramadan fasting is something that is that's a hardship. It's something we have to commit to. It's something that we put. Something we put upon ourselves, and we struggle with. Just like fasting, just like zakat, just like Hajj, we're exerting ourselves. Why? Because to get a sense of a relationship with Allah, which essentially is taqwa. This taqwa is being conscious of God in your life, being mindful of Him, being aware of what He wants, that He's there with us, and how do we relate to that relationship? How do we connect to that? And the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these verses has described that the whole purpose of fasting is to achieve this continual, perpetual state of God awareness, God consciousness. Because that's what fasting does. As I said, we're talking about, it breaks down our habitual patterns. We're now fasting. We're avoiding things that we habitually do through the day, and it causes us to reflect. And all these verses are the beginning of this verse is all about things being upon us. There's no mentioning of Allah, which is interesting. Because in order to gain an access to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first and foremost, it's us reflecting on what we can do. So here we are, I want to gain a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So how can I be available to Him? And so all those verses, Allah's not mentioned, it's used in the passive, fasting's been prescribed on you. It doesn't say Allah prescribed fasting upon you. Rather, it says it's upon you. Just as those were before you. Now this is like, you're not the only one that struggled with this. People struggled before you in this. This is something that people committed to before you, and they were successful in. So there's the encouragement then upon this. And then the next part of the verse that we explored in the last Ramadan reflection was that this is all about, what's this fasting all about anyway? It's about the month of Ramadan. And what's the month of Ramadan about? It's about the Quran. But what's the Quran about? The Quran is about guidance. But what's this guide? Like, I understand, wow, this is something, this Quran, and there's some truth to it. But then what's the guidance? And it says, وَبَيِّنَاتٍ مِّنَ الْهُدَى, and then clarifiers of what this guidance is. So then it's going into details about how to connect to God. That's what this book is. It's going to give you details about how to do that. It's not just general guidance. And then Furqan. And then once you do that, you have a criterion in order to know what's right and wrong. You have an intuitive, once you map your heart upon the map of the Quran, they align, you get a Furqan, you get some clarity. You apply these principles in your life. You're always trying to assess these things according to that paradigm. So then Allah says, once we've got this, and fundamentally, what's the Furqan? What's so beautiful here on a very, tangible level? The ultimate Furqan, first and foremost, is he says, فَمَنْ شَهِدَ مِنْكُمُ الشَّهْرَ فَلْيُصُمْ. So when you see that moon, there's your criterion, just in that, like on a very basic level. Well, where do we start? Where does Ramadan start? Here's the month. Now fast. But then, he says, then in our hearts, some people may say, well, that's a bit difficult for me. I don't know if I can do that. Then Allah says, well, he lays it out on a table for us. He says, well, whoever's ill from amongst you, whoever's traveling from amongst you. So you're in circumstances that you're not able to, in specific periods of the month, maybe, or the whole of the month, you struggle to fast because either your circumstances are incredibly hard, like traveling, or your health. So that's that's circumstantial, the traveling. Then, or your health. So that's actually physically, I can't. In myself, I can't fast. Then Allah says, then فَعِدَّةٌ مِّنْ أَيَّامٍ أُخَرٍ. Then fast some other days. And then now, what's so beautiful here? At this time, none of Allah has been mentioned. Allah's not been mentioned here explicitly. Then Allah says, يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ اللَّهُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ. Now Allah is specifically and explicitly mentioned when he's talking about what? Ease. That what Allah wants from us. So there's this alignment. It's this and this. Isn't the deen easy, brother? Yes. But it's also this. What's this? Responsibility. Making a commitment. So we make a commitment with our hearts to Allah, and then we gauge the feedback once we've made that commitment. Is it manageable for us? Yeah, I'm coping. Yeah, it's a little tricky, Of course I prefer, maybe in my heart, I prefer to be able to have my lunch, but I can cope. I'm going ahead with it. But then other people know I'm really struggling. I'm committing, I'm trying, but now I'm really struggling. So you've got this feedback now. So you make a commitment to God, and then you get feedback. What on earth do? I just can't function. I'm just really unable to achieve the things. Then Allah says, here is where Allah's ease comes in. And now Allah's in the picture here. It's not about, we can put ourselves aside here and say, what does Allah want from us? Now we've got the feedback from him. Now we're in relation to the reality around us. يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ. Now yusra is a very beautiful word, because yusra in Arabic means fundamentally something that flows smoothly through a thin channel. So it flows with ease, but through a thin channel. So we have narrowed our focus. I'm fasting. So we have a narrow trajectory now. We're focused on something that we're committing to. And so we've got to focus on it. And naturally, when you focus, it's narrow. But it's flowing. And it's fine, measured, and proportioned. I'm coping, it's going. That is yusr. And وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمْ, and this is really interesting in the Arabic, because it means the assumed sentence structure here is that Allah wants ease for you, but Allah doesn't say that in the Arabic. He says Allah wants for you ease. This is what we call abnormal sentence structure in Arabic, which brings something forward, specific, to give specificity to it, to give focus on it. I specifically for you all. So you've been brought forward. What does Allah want for you? He wants for you all. And he's thinking about you in this yusr. And لا يريد بكم العسر, and he doesn't want this usr for you. And usr is the complete opposite of yusr. Usr is, it doesn't flow. It doesn't penetrate. It's restricted. So we have to ask, this is a big lesson in life. So we're focusing specifically on Ramadan here. That Ramadan is we're making a commitment to God, but then we've also got to deal with the reality of the situation. And this happens. People reach out to me and they say to me, like, I'm ill. but I can't not fast. I've got to fast. What I mean, if I don't fast, then what is my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I'm already a slacker. So what is it? If I give up on fasting, then who am I? But we've got to ask: is there flow there? Is there so? There's commitment. There's there's putting yourself out there, but then are you reading the feedback? This is like, my health's deteriorating here. I just can't function. This is now what Allah wants from you. He doesn't want the siyam here. He doesn't want the fasting for you here. He wants something else for you here, because there's commitment, but there's got to be flow as well. And if we can learn that lesson from Ramadan, it's important that we learn that lesson in our lives leaving Ramadan as well. Is that we try. We try in whatever thing that we feel Allah's addressing us in, or what we feel we have to commit ourselves to in life. But if there's not flow in that commitment, then we have to ask ourselves, is this really what Allah wants for me? And there's this concept I call 3 strikes and you're out. I.e., I'm going to keep going and committing. I'm still getting hit I'm still hitting a wall here. I'm going to keep persisting. No, I'm hitting the wall, and the wall's getting, my head's starting to hurt now. 3rd time, oh my God, I've got a bump on my head and I'm bruised and I can't even see. Well, this is feedback now. You're walking in the wrong direction. What does Allah want from you in that situation? Now, usually what I find happens, people say, no, no, no. Keep persisting, and there's barakah in the persisting. There will be barakah in this. But if your life's falling apart, if your health's falling apart, if you're mentally falling apart, can we really say there's barakah in this? And we see this in the life of the Prophet ﷺ, because he hit a wall. What was that wall he hit? He was in Mecca. Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, his uncle Abu Talib, both passed away. All of the Muslims, the Muslims were the persecution was increasing, to the extent that now the Prophet ﷺ himself was being persecuted. He couldn't even guarantee his own safety. So he naturally said, Allah wants something for me here. Like, I'm hitting a wall here. It's getting worse and worse and worse. Did he just say, there's barakah in this? There's barakah in this. I just got to keep doing it. And my life's falling apart. No, he stood up and says, I've got to read the signs. What does Allah want from me? And so what does he do? He goes out to Taif. And he goes out to Taif. And obviously he exerts himself. He delivers his message. And then the chiefs of Taif reject him. Everyone's familiar with the story. He goes down to the orchard. At this point, he's broken, the Prophet ﷺ. He's like, I haven't got a trick left in the book now. I was reading the signs, Allah. Persecution was increasing. I couldn't see a way where we could keep moving in that direction. So I looked, what's available to me? And it may be I have to leave Mecca. It may be I need to go to Taif, and maybe the Muslims have to seek shelter there. We get support there, and maybe the mission will flourish there. Maybe the persecution will stop there. But this is what's come back to me. So I don't know anymore, Allah. And at this point, the Prophet ﷺ, he gets down on his knees in the orchard and makes dua to Allah. If you're angry with me, then, give me some sign to get out of your anger. But if you're not, then I don't care then, But, now he comes out with the cracker. He says, but well-being is easier for me. So this is the way to talk to Allah in these situations. And at that moment, when he makes that dua, his enemies are in their villas at Taif from Mecca, because the Meccans had villas there. They see him being abused by the people of Taif, and these are his enemies. These are the people which harm upon him. But their hamiyah, their tribal zealousness rises up, and they say, they can't treat one of our tribesmen like this. And they send the Christian boy Addas down to the Prophet ﷺ. This is the most profound point here for me, that I don't often feel people touch upon this, is that They're engaging the Prophet ﷺ with Addaz, and he says, I'm Yunus. Sorry, he says, I'm from Nineveh. And he says, oh, Nineveh. So Addaz says this Christian servant to the Prophet ﷺ. From Nineveh. Oh, that's the place where my brother Yunus is from. Your brother Yunus? How can how do you know about Yunus, and how is he your brother? Because I'm a prophet just like he was. And Addaz recognizes that he must be a prophet of Allah, and he kisses his hands, feet, and his head, hands, and feet. And at this point, the Prophet ﷺ reads the sign. What's the sign? That Yunus, what did he do? He left his people before the clear sign was given, even though he was justified in his reasoning. Rationally, it made sense. My people have rejected my message. Every time, the sunnah of Allah is that every time the message is rejected, a punishment comes soon after. I need to leave. He did nothing wrong from a rational point of view. He did nothing wrong from his using his own capabilities. But Allah wished something else. But the strange thing is, this is the irony of this double bind, is that Allah wanted him to do the leaving as well. And Allah wanted the Prophet ﷺ to do the leaving of Mecca, just so to show that humanity is limited in its perspective. And sometimes our guidance is in going into the mistake. And it's not a mistake here. I mean, the guidance is in just going forward and exerting your efforts, but then reading the feedback that Allah sends. And the feedback was here. You need to leave these people. This is not the way forward now, but I wanted you to do that just so you're able to recognize this. And to read the subtle signs, not what seems apparent. That what's being read, what's this symbol of Yunus for you? Reflect on that story. And that's what the Quran wants. It wants us to deeply reflect. It doesn't want us to jump on the obvious things. Oh, I want to give up everything for my deen. And then you give up everything, you go abroad, you sacrifice everything, and then nothing works out. But Allah, I'm exerting myself, and then maybe some person of religious persuasion may say, no, there's barakah, just keep persisting. Okay, 3 strikes, I'll go with that advice, but 3 strikes and you're out. I.e., after 3, you're going to have to think, hang on a minute, maybe, because barakah means there's something lasting, there's some ease in it. Barakah has ease in it. If one method is not working after 3 strikes, that is generally a sign for me in my life. This is how it's worked for me anyway. We're probably knocking on the wrong door. And we need to reassess what Allah wants from us. It may have seemed obvious. Isn't it religion He wants from us? Isn't it outward religion? Well, let's just see what it is. And be open to the options. Let's consult people of wisdom. Let's consult. Let's see. Let's look back in our past and where maybe Allah is this a similar pattern that I had in my life. Not exact same details, but I can see this pattern. And then reassess. And this is a massive lesson I feel that Muslims, as Muslim community, need to reflect on, is that it's not always that obvious, and it's not always about just persisting, and maybe it might open up. No, we go forward. We take the brave step of going out. We get the feedback. If there's a wall, maybe it's just because I need to persist. But after 3 times, and it's becoming more, and the intensity is increasing, maybe, just maybe, I might need to reassess things so I don't ruin my life and ruin the life of my family or whatever, it causes harm that's caused. So يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر. And now this is an amazing bit. Why has Allah done all this as well? In order for you to complete the numbers. So this is the amazing thing is, Allah, like someone who didn't fast the days of Ramadan, He offers so many other options. So the most obvious thing is, I'm supposed to fast, am I not? That's the most obvious thing. But maybe not for you. But if you can't fast, don't think you're not missing out. Don't think that you're missing out. Don't think that there's not other things available so you can feel solidarity with your brothers and sisters. You could maybe, if you've got a chronic illness and you can never fast, you feed a person. So that person may eat of that and you get the reward of that. So it's like you're fasting. This Allah addresses each person at each level. If you can fast out of Ramadan, then you make them up so you feel like you've still achieved something. So if you can't do something to perfection, do it to do it to another, do it to what's possible. So you ask yourself, this is a massive lesson as well, is because we become perfectionists, we become idealists, and there's no harm in having that we have something to move towards, as I've mentioned before. But if we can't, how can we do it? How can we break it up then? How can we make it easier for ourselves, but we still feel we're moving in the right direction? And here, this is the lessons that Ramadan poses for us. And then what else do we do? What's amazing is then Allah has Zakat al-Fitr. So, well, first of all, let's look at this. Let's contextualize it with the days that are coming up. If we had shortcomings and we wish to do more in the first 10 days, the second 10 days, we didn't achieve it. Then we've got the last 10 days, which most likely Laylatul Qadr is in, where you get that one night is like a whole lifetime, 1,000 months. So you can get it in that if you didn't make it in there. So it's about like, I didn't achieve that. A bit disgruntled with myself. What's next? Not to become completely down. I'm terrible. What a waster I am. But rather, no, to sit with I wish I had. But then what's next? Laylatul Qadr's offered. Then Laylatul Qadr, it might have passed by. What have we got next? The night of Eid. Night of Eid. Whoever spends the night of Eid in prayer, spend some portion of the night in prayer, his heart won't die on the day when other hearts do. Yom al-Qiyamah. There's your next one. What's that? Didn't achieve that. What's your next one? Your next one is Zakat al-Fitr. What does it do? It purifies your shortcomings in this month. It makes up for any shortcomings and offers celebrate for those people. This is the amazing shift from a communal level. It's like those people achieve things, but we can't celebrate things because we haven't got anything available. So we give food out to those people so they can celebrate it, so everyone can rejoice in it, and everyone feels a solidarity. We're able to achieve the things together. So not just in the exerting ourselves, but also in the celebration. So every point Allah is offering more and more things available to us. And then if then what have we got available next? The 6 days. So we got a celebration of Eid, and that's a massive lesson, the celebration of Eid. Why? Because it's teaching you that what you achieve, you must take a time out to celebrate it. Don't fast that day, Eid. Rather, and enjoy yourself, eat and drink and be merry. Which teaches us that when we achieve something in life, we must celebrate it. And we see this problem in the modern world is that this mentality of productivity is that, oh, I finished that course, what's the next one? And we don't even take time to really sit with what we've achieved. We're always next, next, next. And we get so stressed, we get caught in that activation, that tension, where we're supposed to, when we achieve something, take a moment out, really sit with what and really contemplate on what you've achieved and really feel the sense of that achievement and be grateful. Achievement, but gratitude as well. And that's what Eid's about. And then later on, if you need to make up those days. You can make up those days and feel like now think something's completed. So Allah always offers options available for us to reconnect. What next bit? وَلِتُكَبِّرُ اللَّهَ عَلَى مَا هَدَاكُمْ. So here, in order for you to say Allahu Akbar, it's not about, and there's a big thing here. What does that mean? To magnify Allah. Kabura in Arabic, kaf bara, means to magnify something, to see it as grand in your eyes. It fills up your vision. So to realize it's not about your actions anyway. You're supposed to act, Iyaka na'budu, you alone we worship. But fundamentally, then you've got to realize it's all about Allah now. وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينَ, and you we seek help. And that's that paradox. I love this paradox, is that being able to hold a paradox, being able to hold two opposites at one is a sign of maturity. there's that narration. I don't know the authenticity of it, but it's a beautiful narration where Dawood said, Allah, how can I thank you when you're the one that inspired me to thank you? So my thanks, that the fact that you inspired me to thanks required thanks, and I'm caught in a what's the word? I'm caught in this circular, like, just a paradox in that everything is from you fundamentally. So how can I even give thanks? It's just a perpetual cycle that I can't get out of. And then Allah says, now you thank me. Because once you realize really nothing's you're doing, but you still got to act, then you really experience, then you get transcendence. Once you can hold those two opposites. But the immature mind is one that it's either this or this. That all or nothing attitude. Which is a childlike state. If mummy's shouting at me, she can't love me. No, they could be both right. Mum can love you and she can shout at you because she's concerned about you. And mummy can be right and mummy can make mistakes as well. The mature mind can see both. Mum can be great, but mum can have flaws. No, that's not possible. That's the mature mind. So we've exerted ourselves. We've tried to have taqwa. And then Allah offers dispensations. And then in the end, we have to let go of everything and say, Allah, you're the one in the picture, not me. Allahu Akbar. It's not about me. It's about you, Allah. And in the end, it's about being open to something broader than us and not getting caught in our narrow, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Rather, we see what we need to do and then let go to something bigger. And so we say Allahu Akbar. And this is an allusion to, obviously, the takbirat of Eid. Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, lillahi alhamd. And what's beautiful, you can't get this in the English, is that usually in Arabic we say, yukabbiru lillahi lima hadakum. We magnify, in Arabic we use a preposition, which means for Allah, for what He has guided us. But it doesn't have it here. It says you magnify God. It doesn't say you magnify for God. And then it says you magnify God over what He guided, literally, on what He guided us. And Allah is not the typical preposition with takbir. But Allah is the preposition that's common for the verb hamida, to praise. So Allah's used these prepositions in order to there's an underlying, behind the magnifying is actually glorifying. They're both implicitly, their tahmid is implicit in the takbir, that when you see God as great, you naturally say, Alhamdulillah for this gift, because that's what leads on. Is alhamdulillah for this gift that I don't have to hold everything together myself. I have to have taqwa. I have to be mindful of what God wants from me. I have to move forward, but also I have to let go. And there's this paradox, this back and forthness, this dance, constantly fluctuation between the two of them. And that's where you say, Alhamdulillah, thank you Allah for me not having to hold everything myself and be a perfect believer, but rather being open to what you want from us, for being open to glorify God, for the guidance, for your guidance. Remember, that's what the Quran was about guidance. And there's also, it can be translated as of what you guided me to. So it could be, I praise you and thank you and magnify you for guidance, your guidance, but also for what you guided me to. So the guidance in general, and then the specificities of the things. So it's about thank you for guiding me in general, then thank you for the details of those things I have in my life that are guidance. And that alludes back to the beginning of the verse where it said guidance. The Quran's come as guidance, but also clarifiers of guidance. So you see how they're all interplay, that they all come back and enfold on one another. It's amazing. That's one of the most powerful things about the Quran. And then finally, what does he say? وَلَعَلَّكُمْ, and that maybe now you've realized all this, that naturally you will feel shukr in your heart. So tashkurun, it doesn't say that you thank me, it just says that you find thanks, you sense thanks, that you can feel gratitude in your heart. And what is gratitude? Gratitude is not just saying, well, I suppose I should be grateful. Be grateful. We Muslims, we weaponize gratitude. We say, what are you complaining for? Think about all the other people in blah-de-blah-de-blah land. But that's not gratitude. Gratitude is where it's like the word shakara in Arabic means, one of the words that come from this root is to be something full. or a tree that has shrubs growing up from underneath it, so you can see that what the or branches producing fruit. So the point is that it actually you can see it manifest, and there's growth in it. And when you feel gratitude in your heart, you just feel like you can grow. You just feel open. You feel that you can, that there's expansion. And that's when you feel Allah's ease in his religion as well, his yusr. He's like, wow, Allah, you're amazing. Yes, yes, you've given me guidance. Yes, I should follow it, but also I've got to be real. I've got to connect tradition. I've got to connect law with lived reality. And I've got to know what I can take, where I'm at on the ladder, where I'm at on the path. Because in a lot of the time, they're like, no, you should be right at the end. You should be in perfect world. No, we're all at different stages. And the way we recognize that is by seeing what we're able to cope with. And there's a beautiful story about this. I often quote this. Is that there was a young man that was an offender, and he was a joyrider. He'd gone down for joyriding, and he was on his what do you call it, parole or probation, and he had to meet with his probation officer once a week just to check in with how he was doing. And he came one week to his probation officer, it was a woman, and said, "You're going to be proud of me." She said, "Why would I be proud of you?" And says, "Because for the first time, this was a real test for me. My friend said to me, let's go out this weekend. Let's go out." And I knew what that meant. That meant we were going to go out joyriding. And I thought about the repercussions and realized that I'm not going to go because they don't have a criminal record. I do. They will get slapped on the wrist. I will go back down. And I'm not willing to do that. So I said to them, I'm not going. And I was able to be strong enough to say no and not bend to the peer pressure. She said, that's great. That's wonderful to hear. But what I would have loved to hear from you, now she gives him the ideal, is that the reason you didn't go out is because you could empathize with the people whose car you would have taken, and that realize what difficulty you would have put them in, what grief you would have caused them. So not that about you, but empathizing with others. And he looked her in the eyes and he said, I'm not there yet. I understand what you're talking about, and I understand that's great. But I'm not there yet. I'm working on just me first. I can't empathize with others at the moment. It's about me. And she realized the mistake she made. You've got to meet people where they're at and what they're able to. And we can't beat ourselves up because we're not at that point. And we've got to read what Allah wants from us. And then we feel the shukr and the gratitude, and we feel that the religion is a gift in our life rather than a burden and a problem and a hardship. And we just feel grief towards it. And we outwardly this is often what happens. We exert ourselves, but we keep unconsciously sabotaging any good we do. We commit to some sort of ritual routine in our lives, but after 2, 3 weeks, boom, we just can't keep it up because we're not addressing deeper things first before we try to commit to other things that we'd ideally like to be able to commit to. So thank you very much, guys. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you in this month. And that's the gift. That's the Eid. That's the gift on the day when the people walk away from the Eid prayer, is to think, what do we take for the rest of what lessons do we take for the rest of our life that we've taken this Ramadan, that we can apply in our lives for ourselves and enrich our lives and enrich the lives of those people who are around us. Thank you very much.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much. That was beautiful reminder then. I love the way you contextualize that from just the Quranic ayah there. That was absolutely amazing. What is interesting, what I want to ask is, there's a couple of questions that came in, Sheikh, is that how have you found it? Leading into Ramadan, we had the lockdown and we all kind of anticipate that we are going to enter into Ramadan like this, but has it been as you thought it would be coming into Ramadan? How's the last couple of weeks been for you, and have you adjusted to it? Is it something that was different? You think you made more use of it, or what's your general take?
People of different temperaments. I'm generally, and this is how I was. I think I had my little struggles, but it was like it is what it is, and you've got to deal with it. That's how I deal with life, And I try to ask myself is, okay, this is before me. This is a challenge. What does Allah want from me in this situation? We were like in relation to these verses. I can sit and I can whinge and I can bemoan and I can feel really and struggle, and that may be there. And we need a bit of that. Sometimes we need to let ourselves have that little, fit. but we still afterwards got to brush our, dust ourselves off and say, okay, what we got to do about it though, and we've got to lead to agency. We have to ask ourselves, what can we do in our situation because Allah's placed us in this situation, and then it becomes an act of worship. Then it's like they say, a woman who's on her period in Ramadan, does she take a pill and prevent her because she wants to fast all the days? Or does she actually accept her circumstances and realize this is what Allah's asked for us? And they say the woman that gets up and just sits on her janamaz, a prayer mat, and
Mm-hmm.
just sits there and makes dhikr on a time when it's prayer, realizing that prayer's not asked of her, but she can do dhikr, it's written for her as if it was her greatest prayer, because she's doing what Allah asks of her. And in our situation here, it's like, what's Allah ask for us? But also, where can we create ease? Because this quarantine is difficult for many of us. Okay, this is not an ideal situation, but where is Allah opening up opportunities for me to create some yusr, some pockets of ease in this difficult situation I'm in? We've always got to be asking what's available, and that's what keeps me sane, to be honest. And so it's been a bit. I've enjoyed it. I mean, I personally do like doing my own tadawir, standing and me engaging with the Quran.
Mm-hmm.
And I've taken, the position of in the tadawir, not in my father prayer, of being actually doing the khatam in, holding the Quran and reading it, just so I can feel like I'm engaging with Allah and having that just personal time. And so, it's not going to be a communal time. We can still feel the community in the contact online
Yeah.
or in sending money, but we also can just feel like, just sit there and feel you're fasting, everyone else is fasting. Can you feel
Mm-hmm.
that communal spirit? So even though we're not with one another, there is an energy of people engaging in something
Mm-hmm.
communal that we can tap into. Like, the analogy I often use is when it's the World Cup, you might not be watching the match, but you can feel the spirit of it, can't you?
Yeah,
You
of
can you
course.
can feel it permeating the world, and
Mm-hmm.
there's just like this interconnectivity that we feel that we're not just isolated beings. We are connected to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing with Ramadan. It's just being able to get a sense of that in yourself, that there are others at this current moment doing this, and can I feel that energy of interconnectivity in the act that we do?
Okay, and so you mentioned earlier that it was a bit difficult for you to adjust because you normally got certain customs or we habitually doing certain things every Ramadan. And as we all know, this one's been unique, unprecedented, and we've adjusted to that. Um, was it easy enough for you to adjust to it? And then what lessons that, inshallah, if we get back into our normal quote unquote lives by next Ramadan, if we're still here, inshallah, how do you feel that we could take the lessons from this one and then also apply the kind of routines that we had in our previous life? What would you add or kind of put into it? I've been kind of thinking about that this week. We've had a lot more time to be able to do the worship and other acts when normally we're split between our homes and in the community, in the masjids. So what do you
Yeah,
think of?
yeah. I mean, it goes back to that first talk I gave, wasn't it, about the isness? Is that what this does? Is our breaking of routine, which Ramadan breaks our routine, but the quarantine breaks our routine. And it's breaking our routine, i.e., our routine of Ramadan. And so it calls you to become actually present with what is, and really just sense that. And we will reflect on this. We can say, you know, you can say to our grandchildren, Putter, there was a Ramadan when we didn't have any, and really reflect about, what a gift that it really makes you appreciate what you've got, hasn't it,
Yeah, yeah,
fundamentally?
yeah, 100%. And like I said, normally we're always out and about, but that's why we started that first webinar where we were talking about the virtues of being within the home and our families. And, it's taken an invisible enemy out there that is obviously so detrimental to our health and lives that we've forced ourselves or had to force ourselves to be within the home and amongst our families. And sometimes we might find that difficult or you
Hmm.
need that space. So that's what you discussed in the first session. And I did that on a daily basis, especially last week. The weather's been quite nice. So on a daily basis, feeling that moment of presence, going to connect with nature out there, especially we're so fortunate here around in Yorkshire. And that really helped. And then when you come back and do your acts of worship or your Quran readings or you've got your set times, it's brought a lot more life to it. And like you said, there's a community of people out there and what you've been doing. And I think that's really, really amazing. I mean, what other parting advice would you give now to people who feel like, you know, they found it a struggle, but they really want to make the best of Ramadan between now and the end? Like, what would the main take homes be for them?
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted that in the talk there. I mean, you know, one person fed back to me, I thought this was quite insightful. They said, I'm just really struggling, they said. I'm really finding the fast difficult this year, and my own personal circumstances are really difficult. And I hear everyone talking about how great Ramadan is and they're benefiting. It makes me feel awful about myself.
Mm-hmm.
But my invitation to when you fall into that, and that is your situation for many people,
Mm-hmm.
is like, okay, when things are getting really unbearable, we've got to ask ourselves, is there yusr, where is this flow and ease available? It may be, you know, because of your own mental health, because of your physical health, you might have to break your fast, for example, as we're saying.
Yeah.
And but that doesn't mean, like, where can I connect to the spirit of Ramadan in the smallest capacity possible? Is that where basically I'm just going to go out the house and I'm going to feel the ease that I feel that I'm away from my family for a few moments, you know, and use that as a moment of, now I've got some Quran, now I can sit with the Quran and be alone as I've gone out my hour outside the house, my exercise, and I'm just going to find a quiet space, and I'm going to have my moment of Allah with, so I can feel it. So I feel like I'm getting something. You say, what? But Ramadan's supposed to be doing loads and loads and loads of extra stuff. But we've got to meet Allah where we're at. And if you know, we're not supposed to come out of Ramadan and feel more lousy about ourselves. And what Ramadan's offered, like what I mentioned, is at every stage of Ramadan there's, here's something you can do, here's some way you can benefit. That's what I was trying to extrapolate. So we're
Mm-hmm.
moving into the last 10 days. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, what within your capacity can you do where you get some sense of isness, you get some sense of presence, you get some sense of you're connecting to Allah. It might not be you completed the Quran, it might be that you didn't fast half the months, the days of Ramadan, but that you get something, that you took something from this month, the spirit there. And that's all that Allah asks of you beyond, you know, this, where if it's getting really stressful, it's getting really tense, Allah asks you to look for ease in that situation at that point, and you've got to ask where it is and enjoy the blessing, because it's not about, fundamentally, it's not about our efforts. We're supposed to take a step forward and move towards Allah, but also read what, you know, glorify Allah fundamentally. And are we
Mm-hmm.
glorifying Allah in this month and taking that benefit just to glorify Allah, or are we just caught up in our own angst and struggles? Then we've got to pan out and see where Allah is in all of this. And for some people that's easier than others, but it's having that more broader perspective of how I can connect to Allah with what's available to me in my situation.
I don't know. That's a beautiful reminder what you mentioned there, because often we can get caught up by looking at what other people say, how they're finding their
Yeah,
Ramadan.
especially with
Or
Twitter. Like now, Twitter, like I'm a mate. I've done my hut. You know, this is what we do with social media now, isn't it? We make ourselves feel loud, or we resent everybody.
yeah, yeah,
You know, you say you smug scumbag or something. You know, so rubbing it in my face. Well, no one asked you to go on Twitter and actually look at it.
exactly. And people, because that's their only voice of somehow sharing to the global community. So, but and it can be with the means of intentions of trying to encourage others. But when you see so much of it being bombarded everywhere, you can become demoralized with that, thinking, well, you know, so many other people are really into it, and we don't know the realities of whether they're actually doing that or not. But
Yeah,
it's perception. It's perception. They may not be reading it, but we don't know that, and
yeah.
we want good for them. But is that we then become where we start thinking to ourselves, well, so many else are comparing that and set expectations which we can't meet.
Hmm.
So, like you said, it's creating that space where you say, I need to disconnect with everybody else. I
It's
need to
about
be
me and
there.
Allah. Yeah,
Me and Allah, exactly.
yeah.
And this the whole month is about me and Allah. Sorry, there you go. So, and so, as you were saying earlier, which is really, really touching, and you mentioned that theme of the last few weeks, which is that create that space for yourself. And I love the fact that you've been discussing about those human temperaments and getting to really be authentic with yourself. Somebody reached out the other day and asked this question, and I think it's really pertinent with someone like yourself because you teach Arabic and the Quran. Some people said that, well, you know, I can't read the Arabic, but I'm trying to learn English or
Yeah.
other languages that we're most comfortable with. But even then, learning an English or other languages like Spanish or that they're comfortable with, they still find the density and the words of the Arabic sometimes difficult to get into, or the meaning. So what would your advice be to those people at beginning who are trying to get into the Quran or trying to get some meanings from it, but find it difficult in the first initial hurdles to kind of connect or be able to get some messages? What's your advice to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think fundamentally is that we should never. I remember Dr. Omar saying this, is that we shouldn't think that like the translation is a waste of time. We got, in the end, the message is there in the translation, and it's
Yeah,
important that we understand. And just because we don't have the Arabic doesn't mean we can't access the guidance. That's very important, because often, us Arabicists can put like, you're not really getting the true essence of the language. That can demoralize people because they're like,
yeah, yeah,
so, the first and foremost, knowing that we need to access and understand, but also we have so much available to us, and that was a question that came up last week. Is that find a scholar that goes through the Quran that you really resonate with and connect with,
yeah.
where they can open up those meanings if you're never going to be able to access the Arabic.
Okay.
Um, you know, and obviously, a shameless plug with my, is that
Yeah,
obviously try. I've tried to make Arabic as accessible as I possibly can, and made as many tools and resources available so people can achieve that at their pace as well. And that's why I did it all online and had a portal and everything. But go at your pace. But fundamentally, it's about sitting with people that can open those doors for you. And now, because I mean, throughout this whole Ramadan, there's been so many scholars that have been doing this now. So that if we can't access the Arabic, then at least someone that can mention these little things, like in this talk I gave, to open those little nuggets, so you can really sit with that. And then that's, one thing is like misunderstanding someone had with me this week I thought is interesting. They said, isn't the hardship supposed to end? And they understood that from the very, the famous surah in Shirah, where it says, that it's usually translated, isn't it, with after hardship comes ease.
yeah.
But in Arabic it doesn't say after, it says with hardship comes ease. And in Arabic, the ma'a means the ease is actually enclosed in the hardship. Why? Because when you're in the hardship, the fact that you're recognizing it as hardship is giving you clarity about what you want as ease. So
Mm.
as I'm going, you're saying, I don't like this. Then the question comes, to what do you like? And you say, well, I'd like the opposite of that. And says, well, how can you invite more of that into your life then?
Okay.
So the hardship, it's like, the Kinder egg is in that Kinder egg is the actual answer, because the fact that you're not liking this is telling you that where the ease is, because you know what ease must feel like. And so then it's asking yourself, Allah, I want to experience that. Then when in your life have you experienced that? And why was it that you got that from that? And so it sends you on this explorative journey about what ease was to move you away from that hardship. And so that was a massive shift for them, because they were always understood that I keep doing this and the hardship, and there will be some ease after it, but they weren't getting it.
Yeah,
And I'm asking them to have a paradigm shift and saying, no, it's not about I'm pushing myself. There must be barakah, and it's eventually down the line, but it's just getting harder and harder and harder and harder and harder. And usually the message to people is, well, just keep going, keep going.
yeah,
But if you're falling apart, then I don't believe that. I really don't believe that message. And I think we,
yeah,
we use that message a lot. Is that, no, if you keep striving, you'll get there. No, you've got to ask, hang on a minute, am I doing this wrong?
mm,
Because if after three strikes, you've got to reassess things.
yeah,
And so the answer is, you don't like your situation. What is it then you do want? And where has Allah given that to you in the past? And it becomes to explore that question of ease, and then
yeah,
how to relate to it. And then Allah starts open. As you relate to it, Allah then opens up doors, because you're seeing things from a broader perspective, rather than this like, when's it going to be the ease? So that's, it's appreciating those things in the language, is that how often, we need scholars sometimes to explain
yeah.
those things to people.
That's so beautiful what you said there, because often we have to have that little bit of himma to go through that constriction phrase before you have that expansion,
Yeah.
as you're talking about the ease. And often we want to have the shortcut answer of getting to the ease or facilitate comfort in our lives, but not go through the steps and the means. And often, like you said, you don't need to look too far ahead, because that's also can be a bypass. But you have to make that concerted effort at the start
Yeah.
and be able to have that patience to kind of understand that there is a wisdom in something, and you have to give it a little bit of time, and then you see the fruits.
Yeah, but also to recognize at some point I need to stop if it's getting too intense. That's the key.
It could-
That's the key there, because I think that's missing from a lot of people when they reach out to me. They just feel like they should keep going, and then as if, Allah, now you've got to give me, where's my ease? You've been promising me this, I'm waiting for it. Come on, you know, and
Wow.
and it's not about that. It's about, hang on a minute, it may be that you're just not doing things right, and that's the message of that prophetic story of Daif. Is like the Prophet ﷺ himself had to reflect in, hang on a minute, maybe this isn't what Allah wants from me, and then he had to go back to Mecca. But you had to go through. The point is, all of it's guidance, because you have to go through all of that to get to that realization.
Inshallah.
So
It's 44. What time is your?
We're up to about 9, so I think we're going to be dragging things a bit too long for.
Sorry,
Iftar. So I think
think
just wrap up with a dua now, if you.
Inshallah, Bismillah. If you go
unless
ahead.
there's more questions.
There was another.
You know when I get into things, because my topic starts to slide back further and further.
No, alhamdulillah. Do you have any final comments yourself before we go into a dua?
No, I think I've been, that's the message I really wanted to give people, is that, like, it's not about slogging your guts out until, make it to your brain. They say make it, what is it? What do they say? Fake it till you make it. I just don't agree with that. It's like, it's about, there's someone rephrased that. It's not about fake it till you make it. It's like, I can't remember the phrase. They rephrased it. Because what people often, we'll make Hassan, he can make the dua actually. He's just come in.
Come on, mashallah. Okay, brilliant.
It's about, like, it's not about busting yourself. It's about, like, exerting, but then, seeing what's manageable. That's the real message here. And we use our, when I take people on Hajj, it's like they use their religious rights to cause themselves anxiety attacks. Like they're coming and they just want to do everything perfect. And they're like, oh, did I do that right, Sheikh? Did I do that? What did I do? And I'm like, let's just slow down and let's just realize where we are. We're in Mecca, and then let's achieve what we can achieve and let go of the others. There's always a solution. No, but I did this. I washed my hands with this soap and I did this and this. I says, let's slow down. There's always a solution. What can you manage? What can't you manage? And we can, the religion has solutions for all situations. But we as Muslims, we just like so often use our religion to batter ourselves with, and it's such an unhealthy mindset. And you end up either explicitly giving up or unconsciously sabotaging any good because of that. And that's what procrastination is. Procrastination deep down is because you're so hard on yourself, is that when you're going to commit to something, it's going to stir up uncomfortable feelings because you're always battering yourself, that you end up sabotaging anything that you want to achieve. Because when you're trying to achieve something, you keep battering yourself. So eventually you end up procrastinating and being fearful of even committing to anything, because the fact is you always end up...
Yeah, exactly. And we were discussing with a couple of friends where you double into something, you have good intention to follow it through, something kind of knocks you off that course, and then you don't carry on with it. But so what's your advice in that, from the teachers, from your studies? How do you get past that, lack of focus or procrastination and kind of stick to something, so you're not done?
Yeah, well, it's reassessing what's your attitude towards something. Like, because if you are battering yourself, if you're being hard on yourself, if you're asking too much of yourself, you will naturally sabotage whatever good you're able to achieve. And that's what procrastination is for. It's like, reassess your attitude towards things. Are you doing it with a sense of motivation and feeling the gratitude? That's what Eid, like Ramadan, is like, you exert yourself, then you feel the gratitude. If you feel a sense of relief and gratitude afterwards, you'll naturally want to do it again and commit to something. But if you're in your acts, if you're always battering yourself, and then what's next? I'll achieve that. Now what next? Then at some point you're going to your unconscious mind, your psyche will sabotage it, because they're saying, you're just beating me up every time I'm doing something. I'm not even enjoying what I'm achieving.
Yeah. I mean, and there was an interesting thought that I had in my mind, that we always go to, Ramadan's a spiritual training ground. And as much as, like you mentioned, Umrah or Hajj or those other activities that we do, or we go to visit certain places around the world that have that spiritual connection. And often people, once they've come back from that kind of experience, they actually dropped down further than actually maintaining that high. If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, because they had too high expectations of themselves. Again,
Right.
but I was I was a super worshipper in Mecca, and when you
Yeah.
go back, of course you're not going to be able to maintain most of that, and then you become despondent because it's this all or nothing attitude. Rather, it's like first of all you come back, take some time out. Just to, we say this when I do therapy training. They say
Hmm.
it's best not to go to work for like ideally if you can have a few days afterwards just to sit with what you've
Yeah.
achieved. But we come home straightway. Families like, oh, where's my Zamzam? Where's my dates? And it's non-stop. It's from one thing to the next.
Yeah.
Let's like, can I have a moment just to sit and then to reflect? What can I now? I'm obviously not going to achieve what I achieved fully in on Hajj or Umrah. Now what can I take, but what lessons can I take? And then it becomes a life journey of adopting these little things we've been able to achieve.